the inability of the United Nations and member states to prevent huge violation of human rights has had disastrous consequences.
I am tired of saying never again. If you repeat saying never again, then it's already an admission of failure. We must be serious about this. In the past, there have been situations where the UN has left and not even thought about staying behind, and by that providing international eyes and ears.
Rwanda in 1994 was a pretty sobering experience for the UN when people were turned away from its compounds when they were fleeing from a genocide. And then there was the review of performance in Sri Lanka, where again it was felt that the UN had pulled its punches and more could have been said and done.
To prevent any such violations from happening again, I decided to launch a human rights upfront.
I think that we need inside the organization to be fully aware of the three pillars being connected: peace, development, or human rights. We are starting to break down the artificial walls between these three functions of the United Nations.
At its heart, Human Rights Upfront is about prevention, of course, but it's also about getting the entire UN system working together. Human Rights Upfront, of course, gives the impression that it's just about human rights, but it isn't. 97% of the organization works either for one of the other two pillars, either peace and security or development.
In the end, this is about the human beings and the people and their dignity and their welfare. And from their perspective, the challenges that they face are not subdivided into different mandates as the UN system is. So we need to find a way to bring the system back together into a holistic whole so as to best serve the people on the ground.
We should be much more consciously looking for signs which could indicate that rights are being infringed in a way which could lead to even more serious repercussions.
Human rights violations are the signal that something is going to happen, something that will be potentially very costly in human lives. And these are evidently situations where we have to act. Long are gone the days of just monitoring ceasefires. It's time to do more.
It's often hard to go from early warning to early action. We may know that there's an issue of concern somewhere in the world that could affect peace and security, could affect development, etc. But to translate that knowledge into early action is often hard.
Human rights upfronts provide us an opportunity to ensure that the United Nations is the organization that we all deserve.
The Human Rights Upfront tries to achieve three things. It aims for cultural change, for operational change, and for change to how the UN engages with member states.
One of the most gratifying things about being involved in the rollout of this initiative has been the enthusiasm that I've encountered on the part of a large number of staff who really feel that this is why they joined the organization in the first place. It somehow speaks to the idealism that they always felt.
I think the Rights Up Front is a very effective way of bringing about a culture change, both at headquarters level and at the field level. Protecting people from violations of human rights is an overarching responsibility for all of us in the UN system, whether you're in human rights, humanitarian development, peace and security. And so it's not a new mandate, it's a core mandate, and I think this is drawing us closer to that original idea of the United Nations. The operational change, very concretely, is a mechanism that we now have at headquarters level. If leaders and colleagues on the ground feel that they need the support, they have a forum that they can immediately turn to, which is called the Quarterly Review Forum, where their issues, their challenges are immediately taken up by headquarter departments. And for the most complex, serious situations, we have a higher level forum chaired by the Deputy Secretary General. It's called the Senior Action Group, where the principals of the related departments come together to share the analysis, to share the sense of the problem, and try to find a way of how we can best support the work being undertaken on the ground.
What we're doing now is we're coming together as an organization, various components of an organization, to exchange information that we all may have collected and to analyze together what does that information mean.
Shared understanding is absolutely necessary. It's hard because different mandates naturally channels you to look at even the same situation in slightly different way.
I know from my own experience how extraordinarily frustrating it is to have the sensation that back at headquarters, not only are they not sufficiently supportive, but they're not sufficiently united in what forms that support would take. So Rights Up Front, Human Rights Up Front, seeks to bring everybody together, whereby we've tried to get an improved early warning and preventive capacity. Now we have, through the regional quarterly reviews, a system whereby we get the political actors, the human rights actors, the development actors and humanitarian and the peace and security and peacekeeping, everybody together in order to get a common analysis of the situation and then to see what it is that headquarters can do to support those in the field who are on the front line and most need that coordinated United Nations headquarters support.
So Human Rights Up Front as an action plan should be seen by the field as very, very much a plan that is intended to support the field, to empower the field, to protect the field, and to ensure that the field is able to deliver on their responsibilities, recognizing that they often have to manage complex relationships with national actors, and they're often in a very difficult position trying to protect national staff while also implementing programs.
Ultimately, almost all United Nations work is focused on supporting states in meeting their responsibility.
The hope is that by working early with countries when things are starting to go wrong, we could avert the worst happening. So the earlier the UN system is alerted to that, the better.
This is primarily about the UN doing its own business better, but we need the support of member states.
We will see, hopefully, support by member states to the concept, and that they will realize that it is in their enlightened self-interest to take greater attention to the human rights violations as an early warning signal. Because if they don't, they and we all pay a very high price.
The Secretary General has put it in a very good way in my view. It is a once-in-a-generation opportunity to transform the way we go about doing our business. In considering most situations that we're dealing with, I think the impact of human rights up front will be just generally getting the development and the human rights pillars working together with peace and security to get things on a better track in any given situation. In some of those where we think there could be a potential crisis, then human rights up front could play a very important preventive role.
The most senior levels of this organization will know what's going on and will be able to support and defend the envoy or the representative in question. And I would hope that for the people on the ground who are on the front lines of this, they will learn about this so that they can rely on us to take some of the burden off their shoulders.
Human Rights Up Front is starting to create the changes we want, the cultural changes, the operational changes, and certainly the changes in how we engage politically.
Finally, we're getting the UN system working together when it comes to some of the absolutely key areas where there may be a lack of stability. This is clearly in the interests not only of the organization as a whole, but of individual member states.
In the case of South Sudan, Without the Rights Up Front initiative, I don't think that we automatically would have instructed our people in South Sudan to open up the gates to our different UN premises and compounds. We did so, and it saved thousands and thousands of lives. But if we don't make a difference for the peoples of the world when it comes to their security, their fight against poverty, their fight against the violations of human rights, we have lost direction. And we must return to showing that the United Nations, in its work, stands up for values and principles that make a difference on the ground. This is truly in the spirit of the UN Charter, we the peoples, and the dignity and worth of every human being. It is also in the spirit of the Universal Declaration of Human Rights. If this initiative is taken as seriously as I hope, we'll be there and standing up for those people.